Pfeiffer with you. Looking forward to being with you for a few minutes and sharing a nice story and a few other things that we need to think about. Again, say a little prayer that the Lord might speak to you during this time, and that something might happen in your heart that the Lord wants to have happen there. One day, Alexander the Great, the famous general, was riding his beautiful horse Bucephalus into the battlefield and saw a commotion going on in the distance. He rode to the place where the commotion was and found one of his generals dealing with a soldier who was afraid to fight. Alexander, still on his horse, sternly looked down at the cowering soldier below him and asked him, "What is your name?" The soldier replied, "The same as yours, Alexander." And Alexander responded, "Then change your name or change your conduct." When I tell this story to my students, I would often ask them, what are the names that you use? You use a lot of different names, friend and brother or sister, confidant and whatever. And how about yourself? There's husband, wife, mother, father, brother, sister, some of the jobs that you do, lawyer, technician, judge, teacher, principal, Catholic, Christian, Jew. How are you fulfilling each of the duties that are attached to those names? Hopefully you don't even have to think of changing your name. But in some cases, change your name or change the way that you are living. And that's what Alexander demanded of his soldiers. Maybe we ought to, at this particular moment in history, say the same thing to Mrs. Pelosi and Mr. Biden. Maybe you should change your name or the way that you are living. Make some kind of a decision. Do you or do you not want to be Catholic? The Pope maybe needed to be reprimanded and scolded because of the audacious and bold position that both Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden hold on abortion. And this is not something that is even, Catholic theology. It comes from the natural law. Everyone who's born into the human family understands that it's wrong to do this, and you don't have to have any kind of special theologian standing around telling you that it is wrong to kill babies, You don't need a moral theologian to say to you, gee, should I rob this bank or should I not? The natural law says no. And you know that that's the truth. Should I shoot my neighbor? You don't need a church law or even a commandment. You know that that's the wrong thing. Why? By being born, by being a human being. And it's wrong to kill a baby. Everybody knows that, even though we've killed over 63 million babies in our country. I studied moral theology and was first in my class, and so I know that it's the natural law here. It isn't even Catholic teaching that demands that we observe care and concern for little babies. And I wonder often what Mother Teresa would have said to Pope Francis. She said once that, if abortion is okay, everything is okay. What do you think she would have said to Francis as he welcomed these two people with such friendliness and kindness, the Pope giving each of them gifts and so on, and afterwards not even mentioning the word abortion, It just seems that they should have at least said, my dear friends, you are my brother and sister, and I welcome you. But what you are doing is seriously wrong. It's against the natural law. And certainly if you're a Catholic, it's against a Catholic doctrine. And maybe the American bishops need to say something as well. If you recall in Galatians chapter 2, verse 11, Paul confronted Peter directly. He came to Antioch, and Paul says, I directly withstood him because he was clearly in the wrong. Check it out, Galatians 2:11. Peter was eating with the Gentiles and the uncircumcised, and as soon as the Jewish people in the community came, he pretended that that was wrong. And then Paul says at the end in Galatians, if you, who are a Jew, are living according to Gentile ways, and he was eating with the Gentiles, rather than the Jewish ways, by what logic? Logic. You imagine, that's philosophy. By what logic do you force the Gentiles to adopt Jewish ways? And so Paul wasn't afraid to confront Peter directly, saying, you're doing the wrong thing here. This is just wrong. And I think the American bishops at this point need to say gently and lovingly, but very firmly to the Pope that this is something that it's just simply wrong, and we can't live with that. Francis gave the president a print depicting a pilgrim with his finger pointed towards St. Peter's Basilica and carrying a shell, which the Vatican described as, I quote, a symbol meaning shelter, refuge from the adversities encountered on the journey of meditation and spiritual growth. Whew. Their problems aren't with meditation or spiritual growth. They're with basic natural law, the killing of someone, innocent babies. And it's just incredible, So the warm and friendly meeting that at the Vatican was in stark contrast to all of the heated debates that are going on in our country, it's just a wild situation that really needs to be handled. Mr. Biden called when the Supreme Court said that the Texas heartbeat law was legitimate and needed to be upheld. He called for the whole of a government effort to overturn the Texas heartbeat law. That's not someone who says my party holds this position on abortion and I don't. We need a whole government effort to overturn the Texas law. It just doesn't make any sense. As soon as the Supreme Court allowed the TV the Texas heartbeat law to take effect, Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden announced an all-out drive to codify Roe versus Wade into federal law so that no state could protect mothers and babies from abortion. How can we justify that? You can still be a Christian, but I don't know how you can be a Catholic Christian when you say and do things so outright like that. The other day, I have a friend who gives me a copy of this marvelous scholarly review, the New Oxford Review. It is conservative, but there's an article in here, a 4 or 5 page article by Monica Migliorino Miller that is absolutely spectacular. She touches all of the arguments that are presented, and the name of the article, in fact, is The Eucharistic Theology of Pro-Abortion Catholics. They have a Eucharistic theology that's all their own and says, well, you can do abortion all you want and still go to communion. And she does an absolutely scholarly, spectacular job quoting canon law, the documents of the church, the words of the politicians, and so on. Just a marvelous piece of work in a very scholarly way, so that what we're dealing here was what that same thing that Paul mentioned to Peter. What kind of logic do you use here, Peter? This makes no sense at all. And what kind of logic do we use in this current debacle with these two politicians? And I think the Pope needs, I don't know what's happened, between that and the beginning of the Amazon conference or synod with the idol being presented in the Vatican gardens. He seems to have lost his sense of discernment, and that's not a good thing. It's really not a good thing in someone who's a leader, and somehow he needs to be called to task and explain why he did what he did. Afterwards, all he's talked about were immigrants, the poor, and climate change. Let climate change alone. Your church is disintegrating. It's falling apart like a cheap sweater. Deal with that. Let somebody else, let the scientists and other people deal with climate change and so on. So these are difficult times, and so we all have to say, what are the names we hold? When you call yourself a bishop or a pope, there's certain things that are really required that are extra special, and you can't avoid them. And it's either change your name or change the way that you're living or thinking or acting. At the very, very least, he needed to say, you're my brother, but what you're doing is seriously wrong. You just simply cannot kill babies, and we cannot part here without everyone, the press and all Catholics and people throughout the world, knowing that that's what I said. Otherwise, you end up condoning the things that these people are doing, and boy, that causes an incredible amount of upset and scandal among believing people and other people throughout the rest of the world. So one more time, happiness really does begin with doing the truth today. And when you avoid it or skip around it like this in such a serious matter, the consequences are, monumental. They absolutely are monumental, and we can't afford to do that. The bishops met last week, and it's going to be real interesting to hear what they have to say. There's been so little leadership among them for years, and it'll be interesting to see if they have the courage to be able to speak the truth. We need to love each other, but we also need to love enough to be able to speak the truth in that love. Happiness tomorrow always begins by doing the truth. Truth gives us the kind of freedom that we need, and when you wiggle around it and you don't present that truth, sooner or later, everyone pays for that. And in this particular case, 63 million babies have already paid their dues. Good to be with you. God bless. Looking forward to